Hey, Scott from Aristocob.com here.
And Seth here also.
You want to say it, don't you?
Nope.
Welcome to Markwood Men's Breakfast Club and Morning Boy.
Good morning, Homer.
So as we were wrapping up last week, we mentioned that we would move on from the original Backwoods pipe tobacco, original but new, and that we would smoke one of these others. And I think we're going to go for this one, which happens to be
Black and gold.
Black and gold. This is the one that was always closer to pipe tobacco anyway, of the Backwoods cigars. So we'll smoke that. So a topic I want to talk about that Boy does not want to talk about, so we're going to talk about it, is I've had a couple comments about my apparent weight loss. And yeah, I'm trying to lose weight. I've got to get my knees replaced, and in order to get my knees replaced, I've got to lose a bunch of weight. And thank goodness I'm now at the halfway point for the requirement for my surgery. And so I've had folks ask, how? I'm by no means recommending what I'm doing, and at the same time I'm not bragging about what I'm doing, because I am huge. I am not some...
Look, you're losing. You're
I'm
going
not
down?
I'm no bodybuilder, right? So
You're going down? And
yeah, so here's the challenge for me. Because of my knees being as bad as they are, I really struggle getting any exercise. And that added to the fact that I am a foodie and I do get exposed to a lot of rich food, it's been a challenge. And at one point, I tried to be a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for 4 whole months and gained 6 pounds. So since January 21st of 2018, I have been eating low carb. And there's so many variations on the low carb diet. We've talked about it with a number of our friends and a number of you about, am I doing keto? No, I'm not doing keto. I find keto is kind of odd.
I'm doing keto.
And Boy has investigated keto quite a bit, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what's working, what may be working for you.
Yeah.
Still early on for Boy, but I've had some success that I think is at least worth talking about a little bit. So what do you say? What do you say? So this is our weight loss episode.
Yeah.
So what is low carb, first and foremost? Low carb diets tend to also fall under this category of what's called ketogenic dieting. Ketogenic dieting is where your body begins to burn or consume your own fat because it is deprived of fat. Our brains need fat. That's a big part of what our brains use to do what they do. And so when we eat foods that are lower in carbohydrates, our body, which would normally turn those carbohydrates into sugar into fat, our bodies are kind of starving for the carbohydrates and the sugars that they usually get. And within, I don't know, for me it was like 5 days. Within about 5 days of eliminating the bulk of my carbohydrates from my diet, I started losing weight. So,
and by bulk of carbohydrates, that means almost every single carbohydrate. You can have, I don't know what your number is,
20.
But 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. 20 grams of carbohydrates is maybe 2 Doritos a day.
It's more than 2 Doritos.
It is not much more. I know because I ate a single Dorito yesterday. The wasabi Doritos, by the way, are delicious.
Wasabi?
Yes. Yes. They have that wasabi, that horseradish kick, that it takes your breath away kind of kick, like exactly like you'd expect. They're delicious. I had to try one. I bought a bag so I could give them to somebody else with the insistence that I got to try a little bit. Got to try one of them.
I find that for me, if historically, I have had success with low carb diets. I've gone on what is basically the Atkins diet, and that diet, you start out getting below 20 carbs for 2 weeks, and then you slowly but surely start adding certain carbs back into your diet. And there's some carbs that don't cause your blood sugar to spike. So, for example, if I want to move into where I'm going to do 40 carbs a day, if I added a slice of bread to my diet every day, that would mess up my ketosis. I would go out of ketosis. I would stop losing the weight that I was losing. But if instead I add in spinach or some leafy green or even nuts, for example, those bring to the party other things that require our bodies to work hard to get digested.
Yeah,
and
ketosis, if you aren't familiar, is the state that your body goes into when it starts burning fat instead of carbohydrates for energy. Mm-hmm. So that's ketosis is the state that your body's in.
Mine is in North Carolina.
Yeah. And denial sometimes be firmly planted in both.
Mm-hmm. So most of what I'm eating these days is meat protein. I'm not worried about cutting fat off of steaks or taking fat off of bacon, because fat is not a problem when you're on a low carb diet. Fat does not turn into fat. Again, it's the sugar and the starch that turns into fat on our bodies. Now, one of the questions that came up years ago when I first looked at this was, what's it going to do to my cholesterol? It's a great question. Well, what it did to my cholesterol is my bad cholesterol went down, and I mean way down, and my good cholesterol went up to a level that turned out to be a healthy level. My good cholesterol was always a bit low. And so I'm now 30 or more years older than when I first tried low carb, and I've gone through how many diets and changes of eating to where I now take a statin. I now take a cholesterol pill. So even with that, and talking with my doctor about this, do I need to worry about cholesterol? He said, why would you worry about cholesterol? He said, low carb diet's going to positively affect your cholesterol, and you're taking your statin, aren't you? Yes. Don't worry about the cholesterol. My doctor is, he's a bit of a health nut. He's a teeny little guy. And his biggest concern for me is that I'm packing on or have packed on as much weight as I have. And his opinion of me doing a diet like a low carb diet is, if you can stick to it and if it's effective, it is healthier for you than the weight you're currently carrying around. So again, been sticking with it now for a couple months and seeing the effects and being encouraged. I'm now down 2 pant sizes. I had to buy a new belt because I ran out of loops in my belt.
That's awesome.
I'm baggy now in the shirts that at one time I was uncomfortable in.
Yeah.
And I'm about to make the transition down 1 size of shirt. So hate to do that because I got a big library of big selection of shirts I can wear right now.
That reminds me of all the times I've had people criticize drinking Diet Coke. You know that's bad for you, right? You should be drinking regular Coke. When you look at me, do you genuinely believe that any of the potential negative side effects that could come from diet soda is worse than drinking bottles of sugar? Really, of the things that I will die from, is it going to be whatever you're afraid Diet Coke does, or is it going to be my size?
So I'm still not comfortable talking about the specifics of my weight loss, and maybe you can't even see that, MyFitnessPal. But what it's showing is a drop from the top corner of this chart to the bottom corner of this chart since the beginning of my weight loss. And again, halfway there, I'm happy with that from where I started. And what is that number? I'm down 50 pounds from the first day of weight loss. So
that's awesome. We've talked before. It can be difficult. It's a journey, and so there are ups and downs. I'm proud that as one thing hasn't worked, that you haven't just ballooned back up and given up and continue with downward progress. You know, since you started, there have been 3 or 4 different things.
First one was a limited diet, 1,200 calories a day, and the help of a prescription. And that helped me get through probably 20 pounds. And I didn't like that one. I didn't like that I had to take a prescription first off. And that prescription was called Belvique, and it's designed to help the brain not be hungry. Most of my eating is not because I'm hungry. And so, but that helped. I was doing, what, two meal replacement shakes a day as well. And that got me down about 20, and then I plateaued. And then we learned about that diet that Penn Jillette was on that begins with the mono diet, yeah. Right? Begins with potatoes, and then, as we had planned it, moved into mostly vegetarianism. Yeah. And that was my 4 months where I actually put on weight. And then the low carb.
What they don't tell you about vegetarianism is Twinkies are vegetarian. Ho-Hos, vegetarian foods.
I was trying not
French
to
fries,
do that.
Vegetarian.
I work with a gentleman who, for all of his adult life, so probably 40 years now, has been that close to being a vegan. And what do I mean by that close? He eats cheese. So that's the one thing he can't give up. But he doesn't eat anything else that is produced by animals or from animals. And so vegans would take vegetarianism and add to that things like, we're not going to eat eggs, we're not going to eat cheese or consume any dairy. Even some go to the point of they don't eat honey because honey belongs to the bees, so they don't do that. And with his help, we sat down one day at work and kind of did the autopsy of what I was doing wrong with the vegetarianism. And like you're saying, I was eating
vegetarian pizza is vegetarian.
And it'll still be pizza.
But it doesn't mean it's low calorie, it's whatever else, yeah.
Yeah. So with low carb, it's different. It's not just a caloric...
Sugar is also vegetarian.
That's true. It isn't just stopping caloric intake or lowering caloric intake. Excuse me, I find I could binge if I wanted all week long, eating lots and lots of cheese and meat and eating more calories than my body needs, and yet I would stay in ketosis and I would continue to consume my own weight, my own fat. And I know people don't like the term burning fat because that's kind of a snake oil term. You know, people would sell you something that helps to burn fat. But I lose weight. And the initial loss, it's very quick. The initial loss is water. And I had people who commented on that. Said, well, you know, it's just water weight that you've lost. So I had, what, 10 extra pounds that was water? Good riddance. Doesn't bother me one bit that that's gone.
Yeah.
So, now, what's the difference, if you don't mind explaining this, what is the difference between a keto diet and a low carb diet? Because kind of like I say the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan, there's like a line. And while vegans are vegetarians, they are more than a vegetarian.
Right.
What is a keto diet?
The biggest difference is that keto puts an emphasis on making sure you're eating a particular breakdown of your food. So it really only cares about 3 things. It cares about carbohydrates. You limit your carbohydrates to 20 grams a day or less. It cares about protein, and you have a protein goal of a certain amount of protein that you should eat. And then of your daily calories then, and it does recommend keeping calories. Of your daily calories then, about 70% should be fat. So because your body is burning fat, you need energy from somewhere. You get the fat, but because the fat's not being stored, it's actually healthier to have more fat and less protein, because your body will convert excess protein into glucose, and so it can actually throw you out of ketosis if you have too much protein and not enough fat, just as if you were eating carbs. And so they have like a 70-25-5 breakdown where you eat 70% of your day is fat, 25 is protein, and 5%, it's actually less than 5% is carbs. So for me, when I'm tracking stuff in MyFitnessPal, I'm actually tracking not only the calories, because I want to stay under a certain calorie level, but also tracking the macro breakdown, how do the nutrients break down into protein and fat. And so if I eat a lot of protein at lunch, then I need to balance it out with fat later in the day.
So explain to me fat. So are you going to a butcher and saying, cut me off some fat off the steak, sir?
You can do that, yeah. A lot of people that do this, a lot of people have a hard time hitting that fat goals. The fat is what is satiating you. It's what's making you feel full. And so people will start off their day,
and not necessarily full, but satisfied.
Yeah,
and satiation, right? But you're right. That's
makes you not want to eat.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will start their day by putting a bunch of coconut oil or a stick of butter or half a stick of butter into their morning coffee, and
which actually has a name.
Bulletproof coffee is the blend, and it uses coconut oil or MCT oil or butter.
What is MCT oil?
I don't know. I don't use it. I haven't used it. I just know that's what everyone uses. It's an oil.
To derive from coconut oil or something like that?
Something like that. It's a high fat oil that I think is in suspension. So it's already emulsified. So you can just pour it into your coffee and give it a quick mix, and it should mix in.
Okay, yeah, all right. I did, years ago, I tried the Bulletproof coffee, and I wasn't really doing keto at the time. I was doing low carb, and to me that was just too weird. And it was butter, not a stick of butter, but like 2 tablespoons of butter and a cup of coffee. And it's about as much as you might put cream in your coffee if you put cream in your coffee. And I had to blend it because it just wanted to float on top. And so this oil is that fat, but it blends in without a lot of work. Okay.
Yeah, and so they'll use it for that. But yeah, I mean, if you especially if you're in ketosis, the extra fat in your coffee not only helps you start your day with hitting your fat percentages, but it also gives you a burst of energy because the fat is what your body's burning. That's the biggest difference. That's the biggest difference, is that you actually track what you eat.
But if I'm giving my body fat through my diet, then why or how is it burning my own fat? You know what I'm saying? If my body is eating the fat,
I don't know,
giving it dietary fat.
It works. So you and I
that's at the heart of all this, is it works.
Yeah, you and I had this conversation last week, and so I thought, okay, great. Well, maybe I don't have to have. Maybe I can eat just straight up protein. And over the last week, I've totally plateaued my weight loss.
This was my question. My question was, so many of the people that are doing keto, they're bodybuilders, they're athletes, they're people that are already very lean, and so to me it makes perfect sense that they would add fat to their diet because they don't have the fat to consume off of their body. So I made that suggestion to Boy and was curious what would happen to it.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing to remember is that it is not good to go over the protein goal for the day, because once you go over that, it slows weight loss. I think that you can take in fat without it hindering your fat burning. But if you have too much protein, it will hinder your fat loss. And so if in a day I am going to eat 1,000 calories, if I eat 1,000 calories of protein, my body's going to convert all of that into either protein for my muscles, and then it will take, let's say it takes 800 calories to convert into protein for muscles, 200 calories will get converted into glucose. Just say, I don't know, these numbers, I'm just pulling them out of the air. And so If I overdo it in protein for the day, I might be burning 400 calories a day from my fat reserves, from my weight, but now I'm only going to burn 200 because I've overdone it on the protein.
Okay.
Whereas if I ate 800 calories of protein, 200 of fat to make myself feel full, so I still have the same 1,000 calories, those won't be converted into fat. So there shouldn't be a net loss. I should still burn those 400 calories.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but you're right. It's weird to get. It's difficult to get information because the people online, they're talking about this fall to one extreme or the other. Either it's people like me who are in the 400, 500, 600 pound category, many of whom have lost 100, 200, 300 pounds over just a span of a year or two. Or there are people who are using it to gain muscle, and they're bodybuilders. And so their macros are different than mine. Their calorie goals, of course, are different, but they actually change what those percentages are based on their body type and how much energy they're doing. So like for me, I take in less protein than somebody who's a bodybuilder would.
All right, so I do want to I want to say something that will allow us in the notes above the video, above the comments, allow me to put a little timeline here. So for that person who has either already typed or is about to type something about fat ass, right? Because it happens every time we talk about weight. I actually have a very small butt. So that doesn't apply to me. It's all in my, mostly in my gut.
Yeah.
I've got that pear-shaped body. There are folks that get the beer belly, or even their chest is very, very much like a barrel. You know, and those are things that doctors, cardiologists get very scared of. You know, depending upon where you carry your weight,
Right.
It's something we got to watch out for. Now, one thing though that I always experience, and I'm always surprised when I experience this, it happens every single time, is I get cramps in my legs. My calves or my shins will cramp up at night. And so I reached out to Boyd because I was really hurting, and I'd asked him if any of the things on Reddit or the things that he's been reading apply to clamps or address cramps. Excuse me, I'm looking at a clamp. And he says, oh yeah. So he sent me some stuff. What is it that folks who are doing keto do to deal with cramps?
Well, so a couple of things happen in your body when you start keto or low carb. The first week or so, you end up feeling like crap, usually. And they actually call it the keto flu. But I remember that used to be true before keto was a term that was thrown around with Atkins. You feel like crap the first couple of days during that transition period. Part of what's happening during that transition period is your body is losing all of the stored carbohydrates. So carbohydrates hold about 4 times their volume in liquid. So if you imagine, if you spilled something on the table, are you more likely to try to mop it up with a piece of bread or with a chicken wing, right? And so,
are there feathers on the wing?
No.
Okay, so then it would be the bread.
Yeah. And so the carbohydrates that you consume absorb and hold moisture. They hold water in your body. But when you lose those, you are much more prone to dehydration. So the very first rule of keto is drink. Drink a lot of water. You need to hydrate so much more than you used to because your body's not able to hold on to the water as long. But the side effect of that is as you are going to the bathroom more frequently, getting rid of this water more quickly, you're also losing electrolytes. And so what will happen if you're not paying attention to it is if you drink a lot of water, you will become short on sodium, potassium, and magnesium in your bloodstream. Sodium in particular. And so you'll get headaches.
And these are things that our body uses in the fluids of our body to impart the way our nerves work, the electrical currents that run through our bodies need these electrolytes, the minerals and salts. I experienced this. I really, really did, and the pain was ungodly. Now, with a cramp in my calf, I can get out of bed, I can get some weight on it, get some circulation going, and it'll feel better. And I'll usually drink some water real quick, and that'll ease the pain. But the pain in my shins, there was nothing I could do, and my toes were wanting to curl up, and I couldn't stretch them out.
Those are the worst. I
wound up getting a towel. I was at a hotel room, got a towel, got it wet with hot water, took a couple Tylenol, drank a bunch of water, looked around the room to see if there was any salt, which there wasn't, and put the towel on my leg for half an hour or so, and it finally calmed down. But what sort of precautions would you recommend then? How do I go about restoring?
Yeah, so you need to take in a lot more salt than you would normally, since it feels so counterintuitive because we've been told, restrict salt, but your body needs a certain amount of salt. And the amount that it needs on keto, even though you're eating a lot of salty meats, a lot of salty foods, is significantly higher than if you had all the carbs in your system. I'm talking like 3,000 to 6,000 milligrams a day kind of high. And so one thing a lot of people do who are doing low carb is they drink chicken broth. They drink straight up broth. It's got no carbs or very minimal carbs, and it has a ton of sodium. And so you just sit, warm it up, drink a mug of broth. That's a great way to up the sodium.
But you blend some butter in that?
You can. Yeah. I mean, the weirdest thing...
Drinking my bulletproof chicken broth.
Yeah, so when you're talking about fat, like it is worse for me to eat a chicken breast than chicken thigh, because a chicken breast has more protein and almost no fat. Chicken thigh has more fat. If I'm cooking steak, cook it in a ton of butter or oil, because adding that additional fat helps get that thing in balance. So for the cramping, if you ever experience cramping, if it's due to being dehydrated or electrolytes, they make something they call it Keto Aid or Gatorade knockoff that has water, sodium, which is just table salt, potassium, which can be found in the product no salt,
and then no salt sold right next to the salt.
Right.
Is primarily potassium.
It's 100% potassium.
No, it actually has. Some of them have rice in it, so you got to watch that you're not adding carbohydrates.
Rice?
Yeah, they use it as a filler, so it's more spoonable.
Oh well,
so you do have to.
Okay.
You got to look at that.
Name brand no salt by Morton doesn't have any of that. It's got no carbs. You can also get light salt, which is already a pre-mixed 50-50 combo of the potassium and sodium, and you mix a little bit of that in with some magnesium. Or magnesium chloride, which is a
citrate.
Sorry, you're right. Yeah, magnesium chloride would be bad. Magnesium citrate, which is a diuretic, and mix a little bit of that in water.
Now, magnesium citrate. Fond memories of drinking a couple bottles of that before my first colostomy. No, not colostomy. What do they call that? I had a colonoscopy. And you turn 50 and hey guy, congratulations, we're going to look up your old address. And so they need to empty you out, and you drink bottles of this stuff, and it's a little bit slimy and it's very salty, and it's about $1 at Walmart. And so what this recipe does is you take about a tablespoon of that.
Take a tablespoon of that, an 1/8 teaspoon of potassium, and an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And mix it up in about 20 ounces of water. A lot of people will mix it by the gallon, so they have it always on hand. What I just learned, I've been doing this for the last week. It's great. I haven't had cramps when I'm doing it. I drink it about twice a day. Just discovered that they make magnesium in a powder form, so you don't have to have the slimy feel. The magnesium citrate, though, can help because you're
well, it's sold as a laxative.
Going to be
it's sold as a laxative in the laxative section of your drugstore. Yes. Yeah, that's the one thing. The other side effect that there are two. Actually, there's two side effects that have to do with the way your body processes food. The first one is it slows way down because your intestines are trying to squeeze all the moisture out of the food that you eat, and when you're eating mostly meat. There's not a lot of moisture for it to squeeze, so it holds on to your waist. The other side effect, though, is when it's ready to go, it wants to go. And one of the 5 things that no one ever told me about keto that I watched in a video was
Never trust a keto fart.
because again, if you're doing that much fat,
right.
Could be bad.
Yeah.
So it's weird because I was at the store buying the laxative product when suddenly I need to go to the bathroom, and that was not something I had hoped to do in a public restroom. And glad we're saving this part of the conversation for late in the video.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that you're actually interested in this topic. But regularity would be a pleasant improvement in using a product like this, where you're using, instead of drinking several bottles of that like you do before you go to the doctor for colonoscopy, you're adding a little bit to some water. It's highly diluted. Now what I'm drinking right now is I just went and got some of the Milo Sport that has electrolytes in it, in just a squeeze bottle to get some flavor. But I'm gonna continue to add that to this keto aid you're talking about, because I don't like the taste of water, and I don't like the taste of slime. And so, although the magnesium citrate I bought does have some lemon juice in it.
Oh, that's good. That's better. Help. I got a grape and didn't have any grape squirt stuff, and so I've been mixing it with lemon juice, straight up lemon juice. Okay. It's gross. It's nasty. It honestly, what it ends up reminding me of with the sliminess, if any of you have ever had Pedialyte, it kind of has that consistency. That it's salty and kind of slimy, and so it's not pleasant. But just like Pedialyte, you don't drink it because it's tasty.
It's a beverage.
You drink it because it's good for you. A lot of people will sip on it and have just a little bit throughout the day, which is good.
Well, that makes sense. Well, last night, after several nights of this leg pain, I went to the drugstore before I got your recipe, and I bought several things that had electrolytes in it. I bought some mineral water, the mineral water zero, that has 0 calories, zero carbs, or 1 or 2 carbs in it. And I bought the Squeeze Milo flavoring. Mio, thank you. And they have some, you got to be careful. There's a lot of different ones. Some have sweetener, some have a little bit of carb, some have no carb. And
they all probably have carbs, so you shouldn't go overboard. Depending on the type of artificial sweetener.
They get around that in a couple ways. One way is because the dosage or the serving size is so small.
0.49 milligrams equals 0
milligrams. If it's less than 1, they can call it 0.
If it's less than half.
Okay.
If it's half or above, they have to go up. So Tic Tacs are not 0 sugar. Tic Tacs are 100% sugar. They are just 0.49 milligrams of sugar. And so a Tic Tac canister says 0 sugar per serving. So you got to be careful. If you think that if you're eating a box of Tic Tacs in one sitting, which we all do, and they are always orange.
The orange ones, yes.
You're just eating a can of straight sugar.
Like a Pez tablet.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is interesting. I hope, again, if you're watching this still, it is interesting. There's so many people on YouTube. There's so many people online with blogs that are there to educate and to encourage you. But I would tell you the other extreme. It's not just extremes between carb and keto, but there are those people that are anti-low carb, and often at the root of what drives them is their anti-animal protein. And so they'll jump onto these forums, or they'll make their own videos that are telling you how evil low carb or keto is, and you gotta weed through it. Like I said, I go back to what my doctor said, and if I can lose weight doing this, he's happy for me.
Right. When you're a third my size, then maybe it's time to think about what is the very best of the options out there. But beyond that third, the top priority is get down to a third of the size.
Yeah.
You don't really have the luxury to pick the best. You have to pick what works, and we know that what works is what you're going to stick with. I know about myself that I get bored with things, And so I lean on some other people who have been doing keto successfully to kick my butt.
We have a friend.
Kick my butt and help me not get bored and complacent.
We have a friend. He and his wife have been incredibly successful with keto. And when he showed up at Seth's birthday party the other day, you can't help but say, Chris, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
And he's not a big guy. He didn't start as a big guy.
No, but he's cut, you know, and he's now quite an evangelist for keto.
Yeah.
So, one word of advice: I do like the original Dr. Atkins books, the ones that were written by Robert Atkins. And since he died, his company has been purchased and is in the hands of someone else. And they actually re-released his book, his title and everything. But if you look at the cover of the book on Amazon, it's got several other people's names on the cover. And they have now completely abandoned the original low-carb approach from Atkins, and they're suggesting low-fat. So they're saying take the skin off your chicken, only eat the chicken breast, and so on. And they're trying to morph it and to make it more palatable to the people that are in the low-fat category. I think that they're going to have failures. So my recommendation is it was called The New Diet Revolution. I'll link to it. I just bought a copy of it for Boy, and it's not keto, but if you read it, you'll realize it actually kind of is. Yeah. So he talked about all those years ago about the satiating power of fat, and stop taking the fat off your steak. Yeah. I think I want to go to Lidl and get some steaks.
Yeah, me too. All right, well, let's do that. But before we do, the tobacco, I thought was significantly better than the last one.
I did too, and I smoked that all the way to the bottom, and it turned to nothing but ash. I had about a third of my bowl was ash. So some people have smoked tobacco where there's almost no ash left over. So anyway, just for those of you who keep track of those things, about a third of the bowl was ash, but smoked clear to the bottom and was better than the original. And that was which one again?
Black and Gold?
Black and Gold.
I don't think it's as moist as the original was, though.
Yeah. Well, I had it open a little bit, so that helped.
It's not clumping together.
It didn't start as moist.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for this one. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. We appreciate you. Leave a comment below and let us know if you're using a low-carb or a keto diet, if you've had some success, and let's encourage each other. All right? Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. See you next week.
See ya.